What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline for you. Yes, you, my listener, to get whatever it is you want in your life. My name is Brent Kokel, and I am your host. And while I say whatever you want in your life, you guys know, if you listen to the show, I really mean that. Discipline's the number one trait that you can have, and it helps you get anything from more money to a better body to better relationships to better confidence and connection spiritually. Everything requires discipline. And that is the absolute fact of the matter. I can't say too much more about it, which is why I do a podcast dedicated to it. But in reality, the podcast is dedicated to success. Discipline's the vehicle to get you there. So wherever you are on your journey, whether you feel successful or you feel like you're not successful, or you feel like you've been somewhat successful, but there's an entirely other level out there for you to unlock, that's exactly why you are who I record these episodes for. Why I do it is because I know that there's a lot of people that are accepting the life that they have versus going and getting the one that they really want. And I don't want that to be you. And so if you're listening to this episode and listening to this show, if you're a frequent listener to this show, know that what I want for you genuinely is to do something to better your life, which is what I want you to do. We'll get into that more towards the end of the episode. I covered that a lot in terms of the fee for the show. We'll talk about that later. Right now, let's just dive into what this episode is about. And this episode was born out of an observation that I've had this year in my son's Little League. So he's in Double A. He's 8 years old. And Double A is, in this league, there's Double A, Triple A, and then the majors. And so he's below those things. So this is the first year where the kids are pitching to each other in the actual games. Last year it was coach pitch. This year it's just kids. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of wild pitches. Matter of fact, I actually quit baseball when I was about my son's age now because there was a kid who was pretty much my size as I am as a grown man. And I'm 6'1" to 196 pounds as of this morning. So it was there was a kid that was huge and he had zero control. I got beaned by him 6 times. And so I decided I don't need anybody throwing a baseball at me anymore. I'm out. But as you can imagine, there are a lot of wild pitches. Sometimes it's over the plate. Sometimes it's way outside. Sometimes they throw it behind the batter. Now, they're not trying to start a fight or anything like that. There's no bench clearing brawls in Double A for Lakeside Little League, but it does happen. And of course, a few of the kids get hit with a pitch. Naturally, you'd expect that because they're all about the same age. They don't necessarily know the pitch is coming at them when the pitch is coming at them, or they can't get out of the way fast enough, or they're not sure what to do. Do I swing at this thing? Do I try to bunt it anyway, but bunt it vertically? What do I do? So they get hit. And now I see my son being scared. See, at the beginning of the year, he was taking a step towards the pitcher to swing, like an aggressive swing stance that you would normally take. But now his first step is to back away. He takes his lead foot, which is his left foot because he's a right-handed batter, and his first step is not towards the pitcher, but towards the third base dugout because he's trying to back away. He's scared. Now, here's the interesting thing. He's never been hit by a ball. Never once. He hasn't been hit by a ball in this year's Little League. And that is exactly the lesson that I want to share with you guys inside of today's episode, is you only fear what you don't know. There's going to be a really practical application to this lesson, but it's the truth. You only fear what you don't know. You make up a story in your mind about what something's going to be like. And because that story is scary, you decide that you're going to allow yourself to experience the emotion of fear. Because like my son, he's got no idea what it actually feels like to get hit by a baseball. But still, he's scared of it because he doesn't really know how it feels. And 8-year-olds ain't throwing that hard, so I can't imagine that getting hit by a baseball from an 8-year-old pitcher is really gonna hurt you. You ain't going to the ER for that. Guys in the major leagues just take first base after they get hit with a 95-mile-an-hour pitch. So I think that the 8-year-old can take a 15-mile-an-hour pitch or however fast they're pitching. But this is the deal, right? For some reason, people are hesitant to go all in on themselves and their own progress because they don't know what's going to happen. Instead, what they do is they rely on the story that they tell themselves about what could happen. That story creates so much fear that they stop and they don't do anything about it and they start analyzing it. You've heard the term analysis paralysis before, but that's what's going on. When you fail to act, it's because of a story you have about the potential things that could go wrong with whatever it is you're trying to do. And that story becomes so scary that it paralyzes you from acting. And that's why you analyze things in a lot deeper way than you need to, because you're trying to find out a way to make it so it's not so scary. That's all analysis paralysis is. I see this with so many people who've got these, quote, great ideas for new businesses and never do anything about it because they don't know what's going to happen. They think about all the things that could go wrong and they become scared by it. I could lose a lot of money if I try to put it out there and it doesn't work. If I try to develop a product, advertise a product, I could lose a lot of money. Yeah, you could. As somebody who's in one business lost $376,000 in like 18 months on doing just that, I can tell you it sucks and it's not that scary, and it's great once you reframe it and get a lesson on it, because then you can apply that and you can work it into other businesses and have it actually work. That's what happened to me. But you don't need to be as scared of it as it actually is. The people who have these ideas that they're not doing anything with, the only reason they're not doing them is because they've allowed the story to scare the shit out of them. The same thing goes with health and fitness, right? If you don't give your max effort in health and fitness, you don't do it because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to go through that pain, that sacrifice, the waking up early, not eating what you want to eat, because you don't know what's going to happen. You probably know some people who work out and they look fit like you want to look, and you're like, all right, great. But you know some people who work out and eat right and they're not fit. And you're going like, I don't want to waste all my time if I'm not going to get exactly what I want. But it's like you're scared of it because you don't know. And there's a couple things you don't know. The first thing is you don't know what the result is going to be. You have no idea, specifically in business. If you don't have a massive amount of experience and make decisions every single time based off of data, and you make decisions based off of gut as well, you could definitely lose. And you have no idea what the result is going to be, which is one of the reasons why I work with people so much on data-driven decisions, and we decide based on that what's going to happen versus what we think is going to happen based on our pie in the sky, unicorns and puppy dogs type of possibility. We look at the hard data. But it scares us when we don't know what the result is going to be because we're scared of the unknown. It's like monsters in the dark. And so we don't do anything. We get paralyzed by the fear, and it has us stay without any action because we don't know what that's going to be. The second thing that you don't know, and this is actually a harder one. It's a harder one than not knowing what the result is going to be because it's emotional. You don't know what it's going to mean about you if the result isn't what you want it to be. You don't know what it means about you. That's a big, big difference from not knowing what the result is going to be. There's a story we all have in our minds about who we are. These are our identities. These are our personas, the things that we believe to be true about ourselves and about the world around us. But what does it say about that belief system if the result isn't what you want it to be? This second part here, this second part is what holds lots, and I would capitalize every single letter in lots if I was writing this out. This is what holds lots of people back. And here's the deal. They handicap their efforts as a defensive device because they'll always have the story of, I wasn't really trying that hard. I was kind of doing it with one arm behind my back. They handicap themselves with that. It's not for any reason other than it is a direct attack. It's an assault on the story of what they believe to be true about themselves and about the world around them. And I understand why this is scary. I understand why it's fearful, because right now you don't know, if you've never tested yourself in this level, like I'm talking about on this episode here. If you haven't tested yourself at this level, I'm going to have you consider that you don't know, which is why it creates fear. You don't know if your stories about yourself and about the world around you are true. And so that's a scary thing. Because what if you're not as smart as you think you are? What if you're not as capable as you think you are? What if you're not as gifted as you think you are? Now, you might be all those things. But the point of it is that you don't know until you act. And because you don't know, it's fearful. You don't know what you're capable of. And so it becomes scary. You might be capable of a lot more than even you think you are. Could be capable of a lot less, which is a really, really difficult thing to handle emotionally. So it's like, for me, I used to get really, really scared when I would go on sales calls. This was after I stopped being a television news reporter and I had like 6 months left on a lease in a house in Phoenix, Arizona. And I needed something to do. And I had a friend who sold copiers. And so I said, all right, great, I'll sell copiers for 6 months before I move back to California and I start my own company. I'll sell copiers, no problem. Now, one of my jobs when I was selling copiers was I would go to every office that was in my territory and I would walk in and I would talk to them about copiers. Now, who would I talk to? I would talk to the receptionist. And I got scared because I didn't know how they would go. I felt like I could talk. I'd been on the news. I'd been in a big market, top 20 market in the country. And I was like, I know I can talk, but man, I don't know if I can sell. And if I can't sell, then what's that going to do about me as it relates to me trying to start a business when I move back to California? Well, shit, man. I had this Mustang GT convertible at the time. It was like a 99, and this was like the early 2000s, so it was still pretty fucking cool. And I would sit there in the Mustang, and I would look at the steering wheel, and I would just sit there in parking lots in Phoenix, thinking through what I was going to say. It scared the shit out of me to go talk to a receptionist because I didn't know how I was going to go. Now, that entirely changed because I didn't have a framework in place. I didn't have something that said like, okay, here's how the conversation goes. You ask this question, then you ask this question, then you ask this question, then you make this statement, then you make that statement, then you ask this question, and then boom, you get it. See, I've got a framework in place now. It's no longer scary to me to go into any sales conversation because I've got a framework that just works, and it works in like every industry and every experience because every place you're selling something, you're selling it to a person. But I couldn't figure out how to systematically get people to say yes, that I wanted to say yes, and so it scared the shit out of me. Now, changed, because I've got a more predictable way of going about it. But the only way I created the predictable means of getting people to say yes was by getting people to say no a whole lot and having to fight this fear of what I didn't know. But once it became known, it became an easy thing for me to do. So, the question in this episode, this is the thing that I want you to do for yourself. This is the fee that I mentioned earlier. I want you to do something in the next 24 to 48 hours that's going to improve your life in some way. I'm going to give you a question to ask yourself. I want you to dig in on this. Like, spend some time. Don't just give it like a flippant, like 10-second response to yourself. You're the only person that's going to see that effort. This isn't for me. This is for you. So if it's something that you feel like you're like, damn it, man, this whole thing resonated with me, then really like spend time with this question. You can write about it. You can think about it. You can talk about it. I don't care what you do. But make sure that you get the value out of this. You've invested almost 13 minutes with me here. I want you to get the value out of this. It was like we spent 13 years together. And here's the deal. Where are you letting fear hold you back from action right now? Where are you letting fear hold you back from action? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. Ask yourself that question in the next 24 to 48 hours. Identify that spot and then just go assault that spot. Because that, my friend, is the way out. All right, guys, do me a favor. If you haven't yet, share this show with somebody you think needs to hear it. All you've got to do is click the little 3 buttons in the share icon, text it to somebody else, and have them listen to this show as well. If you feel like it is going to resonate and somebody else that you know needs to hear this exact message that I have delivered to you today. You know more people than I do, especially you know their unique situations a lot better than I will. So if you got a friend, you got a family member, somebody that you know at work that you think needs to hear this message, it would mean the world to me if you would share the link to this episode with that person and help me grow this audience here of people that really aren't no longer willing to accept the life they've been given and they want to go get the one that they know they deserve. All right, guys, that's it. That's the show for the day, everybody. I'm going to do my job and come back next time. I want you to do your job and you come back too.